Here is position 1 of the minor pentatonic scale. This simple and easy to play scale is often the gateway for many guitarists to break into the world of lead guitar and improvising guitar solos, like this. For many guitarists, this style of playing can seem daunting and complex. However, in this lesson, I will guide you step by step through the process of creating your own guitar solos and show you that it can actually be very easy to sound good with very little effort. So let's get started. As you can see, each note in this scale has a number assigned to it. These all refer to the fingering, not the fret numbers. To begin with, we need a starting note, so let's pick the A note on the low E string, 5th fret. As our scale is called the minor pentatonic scale, this will place us in the key of A minor, but we'll get into that in more detail later. Play this note using your 1st finger. Next, play the note located on the same string but 4 frets higher with your 4th finger. Next, jump to the A string and play the 1st finger followed by the 3rd finger. The D string would be the same, so fingers 1 and 3. The G string again would be fingers 1 and 3. The B string would be fingers 1 and 4, and the final E string would be fingers 1 and 4 also. So altogether that would be 1 4 1 3 1 3 1 3 1 4 1 4. So nice and easy. Try to memorize and practice playing this ascending, so playing up the scale, and descending, coming down the scale, until you have a basic grasp of the pattern. Next, we need a backing track to play this scale with. You have two options here. The first option is to simply find a backing track on YouTube. Try searching backing track, and you'll find hundreds of great sounding tracks to improvise with. However, and this is very important, make sure that it's in the correct key. So you might be better specifying backing track in A minor. This scale will also work over most blues backing tracks, whether it specifies A or A minor, as blues harmony tends to function a bit differently, but that's for another lesson. The second option is to use a loop pedal to create your own backing track. This is my preferred option, as you can record your own rhythm track with whatever feel, groove or chord you want. And not to mention, they're lots of fun and a great songwriting tool. For those of you that don't already own some kind of loop pedal and have never experimented with one of these, I'll leave a link in the description if you want to pick up one for yourself. Okay, so we have our scale and we have our backing track, so let's put them together. Next, you'll simply want to play this scale over the backing track slowly and listen. You'll hopefully notice that every note sounds good. For those of you that have not been through this process, then this should be a bit of a light bulb moment, as you realise that as long as you stick to the scale notes, you can't actually play anything that sounds bad. Now, playing this scale up and down obviously sounds good, but it doesn't yet sound like a guitar solo. So let's experiment with starting and ending in different locations, perhaps repeating certain notes and adding dynamics such as shorter or longer notes, or quieter and louder notes. All of these things help, but you may feel that you're lacking direction and sound a bit lost, which brings us to the next step. The root note is the first note in our minor pentatonic scale, this being our A note that all the other notes relate back to. Ending on this note will give your phrases a sense of home or resolution. There are 3 places that our root note or A note occurs in this scale. You should learn these locations and center your musical phrases around them. This will go a long way towards you sounding less lost when improvising. So we've already discovered that ending on a root note has a sense of resolution. So what happens when we play a phrase that finishes on any other note in the scale? The answer is the exact opposite. We create a sense of tension that needs to be resolved. So let's call these phrases questions, and phrases ending on a root note answers. With this concept, you could have a musical conversation with yourself, adding much more interest into your guitar solos, and giving you even more sense of direction when improvising. At this stage, you'll want to experiment with decorating your phrases using every technique at your disposal. The idea here is not to simply use technique for technique's sake, but more to add expression to better represent what you're trying to say on the guitar. Okay, so that's everything you need to know in order to start improvising, but we're still missing one vital piece of information. How do we play in other keys besides A? The process for playing in other keys is very simple. Simply shift the scale pattern until the root note arrives at the desired key. For example, if we wanted to play in a key of G, we would simply shift our scale to the 3rd fret, or G note. What about the key of B? We would simply shift the scale up to the 7th fret, or B note. If you don't yet know the names of the notes on this string yet, then now's probably a good time to learn. You can watch my lesson on memorizing the fretboard note names to help with this. Once you've spent enough time with these concepts and you begin to get comfortable with how the scale sounds and what phrases you can produce, you may want to break out of this position and start using notes elsewhere on the fretboard, which we'll move on to in the next lesson. As usual, feel free to like, comment and subscribe if you haven't already. See you in the next one. Here is position 2 of the minor pentatonic scale. Using this will allow you to break out of and extend position 1 of the minor pentatonic scale. This will give your guitar solos more range and expand your knowledge of the fretboard. So let's get started. To learn position 2 of the minor pentatonic scale, you first need to know how it connects with position 1. So let's look at both positions together. As you can see, our starting note for position 2 is the 2nd note of position 1. You will also notice that both positions share these notes on the fretboard. You could view these notes as the glue that connects both position 1 and 2. Now that we have our starting note, we can run through the scale. Try to memorize and practice this position ascending, so playing up the scale, and descending, coming down the scale, until you have a basic grasp of the pattern. You could also try ascending position 1 and then descending position 2. Next, to avoid sounding lost or lacking in direction, you will want to identify the root notes within position 2. As we are in the key of A minor, then the root notes would be the A notes located here and here. Try targeting these root notes or centering your ideas around them to give your phrases a much greater sense of purpose. And ending a phrase on one of these root notes will give your phrases a sense of closure or finality. The chances are that if you're learning position 2 of the minor pentatonic scale, then you already have a few go-to phrases or licks that you use within position 1. A great way of becoming more familiar with a new position is to figure out how to transfer these licks into a new location in your new position or scale. So here are 3 shortcuts to allow you to do this much faster. If I draw your attention to the first 4 notes of the first position of the minor pentatonic scale, so A, C, D, and E, and then show you the location of these same notes in position 2, you will have a quick way of playing identical licks in both locations. Here's some examples. The 4 notes on the D and G strings in position 1, so G, A, C, and D, can be played here in position 2, allowing you to play the same licks in both positions. And lastly, the 4 notes on the B and E strings, so E, G, A, and C, can be played here in position 2, once again allowing you to play identical licks in both positions. A great exercise for seeing and playing these two positions as one big position is to use slide transitions. Here is the exercise. So predominantly you're playing in position 1, but before jumping to the next string, you would slide up to the next available note on the same string but in position 2, and back down to the starting note in position 1 again. Extra points if you can do this with one picked note per string using hammer-on, slides and pull-offs. This exercise will give you multiple pathways in and out of both positions when improvising, making two positions seem much more like one big position. Changing keys works exactly the same as it would for position 1. Position 2 just tags along for the ride. Just shift both scale patterns together until you arrive at the correct root note that matches the key of the song you're playing to. Here is position 3 of the minor pentatonic scale. Using this new position will extend both positions 1 and 2 of the minor pentatonic scale, expanding your knowledge of the fretboard and allowing you more freedom when soloing across the entire neck. So let's get started. To learn position 3 of the minor pentatonic scale, you first need to know how it connects with position 2. So let's look at both together. As you can see, our starting note for position 3 is the second note of position 2. You will also notice that both positions share these notes on the fretboard. You could view these notes as the glue that connects both position 2 and 3. Now that we have our starting note, we can run through the scale. Try to memorize and practice this position, ascending, so playing up the scale, and descending, playing down the scale, until you have a basic grasp of the pattern. Next up, to avoid sounding lost when soloing, you will need to identify the root notes within position 3. As we are in the key of A minor, then the root notes would be the A notes located here and here. When soloing, try to center your phrases around these root notes to give your solos much greater direction and purpose. One issue faced when learning position 3 is that it's much further away from our comfort zone in position 1. As most guitarists new to lead guitar will nearly always start a guitar solo in position 1, this makes position 3 a bit of an afterthought, which we might climb up to during a solo, only to quickly return to our comfort zone once again. Here is a great way to fix this. When beginning a solo, you first think of the root note that matches the key of the song, in this case A, and most guitarists at this stage will gravitate towards the A on the low E string, which will then determine where they place position 1, and from there they build outwards. What we need to do here is create a new comfort zone in position 3. So from now on, as a bit of a personal challenge when starting a solo, don't think where is the root note on the low E string, think where is the root note on the A string, and start your solos from this point in position 3 of the minor pentatonic scale. Do this until the process feels as effortless as jumping straight into position 1. To speed up the time it takes to get familiar with this new position, let me show you how to transfer any phrases or licks you already play in position 1 to position 3 of the minor pentatonic scale in 3 steps. To begin with, let's look at the first 4 notes of the first position of the minor pentatonic scale, so A, C, D, and E. And now the location of these same notes in position 3. This will allow you to play the same licks in both locations. For example, the 4 notes on the D and G strings in position 1, so G, A, C, and D, can be played here in position 3, allowing you to play the same licks in both positions. And lastly, the 4 notes on the B and E strings, so E, G, A and C. These can be played here in position 3, once again allowing you to play identical licks in both positions. Changing keys works exactly the same as it would do for position 1 and 2. Position 3 just tags along for the ride. Just shift both scale patterns together until you arrive at the correct root note that matches the key of the song you're playing to. Here is position 4 of the minor pentatonic scale. Learning this new position will extend positions 1, 2 and 3 of the minor pentatonic scale, expanding your knowledge of the fretboard and bringing you one step closer to soloing across the entire neck of the guitar. So let's get started. To learn position 4 of the minor pentatonic scale, you first need to know how it connects with position 3. So let's look at both together. As you can see, our starting note for position 4 is the second note of position 3. As you will also notice, both positions share these notes on the fretboard. You could view these notes as the glue that connects both positions 3 and 4. Now that we have a starting note, we can run through the scale. Try to memorize and practice this position ascending, so playing up the scale, and descending, playing down the scale, until you have a good grasp of the pattern. Don't spend longer than is necessary running up and down the scale. Your time is far better spent looking up any backing track and improvising as quickly as possible. You will get to know the scale in a much more deeper and musical level this way, and it's a lot more enjoyable. You could also use a loop pedal to practice your rhythm guitar chops and lead guitar both together. Next, you'll want to get to know the location of the root notes in position 4. In this case, the A notes located here and here. This will give your phrases a greater sense of direction when soloing. To speed up the time it takes to become familiar with this new position, let me show you how to transfer any phrases or licks you can already play in position 1 to position 4 of the minor pentatonic scale in 3 steps. To begin with, let's look at the first 4 notes of the first position of the minor pentatonic scale, A, C, D and E. And now the location of these same notes in position 4. Knowing this will allow you to play the same licks in both locations. For example, the 4 notes on the D and G strings in position 1, so G, A, C and D, can be played here in position 4, allowing you to play the same licks in both positions. And lastly, the 4 notes on the B and E strings, so E, G, A and C, can be played here in position 4, once again allowing you to play identical licks in both positions. A great way to get used to playing through multiple positions is to create phrases or licks that pass through different locations of the neck rather than simply staying in one position at a time. This solidifies your understanding of the fretboard and allows much more seamless transitions through each position of the minor pentatonic scale. Here is an example that you could use to travel from position 2 to position 4 of the minor pentatonic scale using double stops, hammer-ons, pull-offs and slides. Changing keys works exactly the same as it would do for positions 1, 2 and 3. Position 4 just tags along for the ride. Simply shift all the scale patterns together until you arrive at the correct root note that matches the key of the song you're playing to. Here is position 5 of the minor pentatonic scale. This is the final piece of the puzzle that will allow you to improvise and play lead guitar seamlessly across the entire fretboard by connecting with positions 1, 2, 3 and 4 of the minor pentatonic scale. So let's get started. In this lesson you'll learn how to play position 5 of the minor pentatonic scale, how it connects to position 1 and 4, where the root notes are located within this position, one big lick to connect positions 1 through to 5, how to easily transfer licks from position 1 to position 5 of the minor pentatonic scale, and best of all, towards the end of the lesson I will show you that by learning all 5 positions of the minor pentatonic scale, you have unintentionally just learnt all 5 positions of the major pentatonic scale. So 2 birds, 1 stone. Position 5 of the minor pentatonic scale is by far the easiest to memorize as it's perfectly symmetrical, so quickly practice this scale ascending and descending to get the shape under your fingers. Position 5 of the minor pentatonic scale starts from the second note of position 4. So this means they share these notes on the fretboard. Position 5 then simply joins back up with position 1, sharing these notes on the fretboard. This closes our pentatonic loop and allows us to play across the entire fretboard. Don't spend longer than is necessary running up and down the scale. Your time is far better spent looking up any backing track and improvising as quickly as possible. You will get to know the scale in a much more deeper and musical level this way, and it's a lot more enjoyable. You could also use a loop pedal to practice your rhythm guitar chops and lead guitar both together. The root notes in position 5 of the minor pentatonic scale are located here and here. When first learning this scale, be sure to also memorize the location of these root notes to help give your phrases a sense of resolution. A great way to get used to playing through all 5 positions is to create phrases or licks that pass through different locations on the neck, rather than simply staying in one position at a time. Here's an example. To speed up the time it takes you to become familiar with this new pentatonic pattern, let me show you how to transfer any licks you can already play in position 1 to position 5 of the minor pentatonic scale in 3 steps. Let's look at the first 4 notes of position 1 of the minor pentatonic scale. So A, C, D and E, and now the location of the same notes in position 5. Knowing this will allow you to play identical licks in both positions. For example, the 4 notes on the D and G strings in position 1, so G, A, C and D, can be played here in position 5, giving you access to the same licks across both positions. And finally, the notes on the B and E strings in position 1 can be played here in position 5. At the beginning of this lesson, I said that by learning all 5 positions of the minor pentatonic scale, you have unintentionally just learned all 5 positions of the major pentatonic scale. So let me explain how this works. You have already done the hard work and learned each pattern of the minor pentatonic scale, which we know as positions 1 through to 5. So all we need to do in order to see this as the 5 positions of the major pentatonic scale is to shift our perspective. So you will notice that position 1 of the minor pentatonic scale has become position 5 of the major pentatonic scale, making position 2 of the minor pentatonic scale position 1 in the major pentatonic scale. If this concept seems at all confusing, then simply put it into practice by searching for a backing track in a major key, for instance the key of A, and begin improvising by finding the A root note on the low E string as usual, but instead of placing position 1 of the minor pentatonic scale here, you would place position 1 of the major pentatonic scale here instead. Again, shift your perspective, as you will be viewing this as position 2 of the minor pentatonic scale, But in fact, in this new root position, we are now viewing it as position 1 of the major pentatonic scale. If you run this scale up and down over a major backing track, you will immediately notice that it has a much brighter sound than its minor counterpart. And from here, it's very easy to change to different positions, as they all still connect in exactly the same way. So don't get too bogged down with the details of which minor pentatonic position is which major pentatonic position. Simply begin improvising and getting used to the sound of this new scale. You may find that most of your phrases you've learnt or use within the minor pentatonic scale don't sound quite right within the major pentatonic scale, and this will be simply to do with root note locations. So here are the locations of the root notes in the major pentatonic scale. Changing keys in either the minor or major pentatonic scale works exactly the same way. Just shift all scale patterns together until you arrive at the correct root note that matches the key of the song you're playing to. If you have any questions in relation to any of the topics covered in this lesson, or would like to request a subject for me to cover in future lessons, then feel free to leave a comment down below in the comment section. And if you haven't done so already, then give this video a like, subscribe and ring the notification bell. See you in the next one.